Hello, everyone. My name is Whitney Stoll. I'm the DC Post First Vice President. Bree Bill, our programs director, is actually away this week, so I'd like to introduce to you Dana Molinari from Fox Rothschild, who's going to be hosting our webinar today and will be monitoring our chat. And our program has actually grown in such popularity, and Microsoft Teams has actually we had a lot of limitations. So I'd like to welcome you to our new platform, WebEx. So we'll be using this platform moving forward with this. So thank you for all who have been joining us in the past. We just, our first Fridays have really been doing a great job. So we really appreciate everyone who's done a first Friday and continues to join. So really appreciate that. So thank you all for joining us here today. We've had over 300 registered participants from all around the country and the world for this program, including members from SAME, SMPS, and APMP. So I know you're all excited about this program, as are we. So please join me in welcoming Catherine Bennett from Proposal Industry Experts, who, along with the panelists, will be presenting Unlocking the Potential of ChatGPT and Large Language Models for Proposals. We'll learn more about the history, technology, and advances in artificial intelligence and LLMs to help you with writing and putting together proposals, as well as a demonstration of actionable steps to get started with AI right away. But I'd like to start by welcome by introducing you to our First Friday series, which is provided to you through SAME's commitment to offering AEC community-effective training, development, and networking programs. The DC Post is helping sustain the future of the profession with these monthly education-focused sessions to deliver topical and relevant content to our industry. Thank you all for joining us here today as we start our program. Please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself to everyone throughout the presentation, ask questions, so we can address them during the Q&A portion at the end of the event. Put in where you're calling in from, your company, your LinkedIn chat. Feel free to definitely engage. Again, this is a lunchtime session for those joining us on the East Coast, so feel free to eat your lunch during the program. So we're so glad that you could join us here today, and we're happy to be able to offer this virtual program to our community, regardless where you're attending from. So let's start with a moment of silence to remember our active duty military, first responders, and all who need our care and thoughts throughout the world right now. Thank you. And please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our DC Post sponsors for your support. It's AMT, Black & Veatch, Christopher Consultants, Consigli, Gannett Fleming, Spiniello, Stantec, WSP, Jacobs, Woods Peacock, AB Facility Service Solutions, Arche Consulting, Prime AE, and Stanley Consultants. We truly appreciate your support. We could not have pulled off these events without you, and we are grateful for your outstanding sponsorship. Your support helps us meet our society goals, which includes excellent content for our members, industry and government engagement, building resilient communities, connecting our future leaders through student and young member groups, enriching the STEM pipeline, and preparing our military and veterans for life after the service. If you're not already a DC Post sponsor and like to support our post with annual sponsorship, then we'd love to add your name for future programs and events this year. So please visit our website for more information about sponsorships and how you can give back through your DC Post. And now it's time for the main program. So please note, this program will be providing one professional development hour through the DC Post. Look for an email with the subject line document delivery from SAME DC and Eventbrite with a copy of our program slides and your PDH certificate. We are recording this session and we'll post a video on our website later on. So I'm not going to read to you the learning objectives on this slide, since most of you saw the same objectives when you registered. Instead, I'm going to introduce to you our featured presenter. And while I do the introduction, if you haven't done so already, again, please use the chat to introduce yourself, share contact information, as well as where you're from. And please use the chat throughout the presentation to share comments, questions for our presenters. If there is a particular slide you want to talk about, please share that detailed in the chat. So next, I'd like to introduce to you the team and the presenter. So Catherine Bennett is a top 40 under 40 winner, world record holding strongman competitor, celebrated TEDx and Ignite speaker, and advocate for developing mental toughness, leveraging their skills in ChatGPT and networking to enhance their career and connect with their community, all while co-founding an inclusive proposal management community, proposal industry experts, and utilizing their diverse background to excel in various industries and empowering others to overcome challenges and achieve success. Catherine is joined by 3 expert panelists, and they will introduce themselves in a moment. So Catherine, thank you for joining us. Really excited for this, and I'm turning the program over to you.
All right, this is going to be a blast. We are so excited to bring this presentation to y'all today. One moment while I get to screen sharing. Everybody can see the presentation? Yep. All right. Excellent. Well, let's get this
coming in loud and clear. Yep.
All right. Let's get this show on the road. So thank you very much to Whitney for reading the bio that I crafted myself with ChatGPT for myself. Very excellent way to get kicked off today. So I'm not going to give you any additional context on myself. Let's go ahead and get our expert panelists' background and opinions. Unica, Javier, and Michelle, I'll go ahead and start with you, Unica. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Unica Walcott. I'm a proposal manager and writer for AECOM. I've worked at firms as small as 50 people and been the marketing department of one to now AECOM at 50,000 people. I am also an inaugural board member for Proposal Industry Experts, and I host a podcast called Career Conversations. My connection here today is my involvement on the AI task force. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Javier.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Javier Escartin. I'm DeepRP founder. I've been in proposals for more than a decade now. First in the corporate world, then as a full-time freelancer. And I launched a tech business last year to bring AI advancements into our field. So, that will be it.
All right, excellent. And Michelle, already known here at the SAMI group, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Michelle Atkinson. I am the managing partner at Cavalry Consulting. I've been involved in proposals, for 15 years at least. And also in AI, I'm not sure that a lot of you know that. I took a little break from Cavalry a few years ago, went down this rabbit hole of AI and proposals because I knew this was coming. And I'm really excited about this. I actually went and won myself a CIBR contract through AFWorks for this very thing of AI writing contracts and proposals. And, we're just on the cusp of what all of this is. So I'm really excited to share what I've learned then, how I'm seeing this all come to fruition, and what the impact is in the future and how I'm using it today. Forgot to even mention that I'm on the board of the SAME Kitty Hawk Post and highly involved in speaking at different conferences like that. So it's great to see some familiar faces here today.
What a delight. So you can tell that we have deep experience. I think probably if we're going to do that whole, let's gather our cumulative experience, probably 75 years of cumulative proposal and AI experience combined here. So we have a really deep level of experience and knowledge, and we're really excited to bring that to you today. So what we're going to do today, this is going to be a fast-paced session. It's going to be super quick, and we're going to get you a lot of information. So if you feel like you're missing anything or you want us to slow down, pop that in the Q&A, pop that in the chat. We can revisit this and we can have conversations as we go. First, what's going to happen today is that I'm going to give you a quick background of AI. We're going to talk a little bit about the context and how this has appeared and what the tools look like in our domain. And then as soon as we rocket through that, we're going to get to a demonstration of actual AI capabilities and features and how you might be able to use those in your proposal management practice. And then we will also have a deep Q&A session with all of the experts. So you'll be hearing from them throughout this conversation, but you'll really be able to pick their brains at the end. So we're excited to bring that to you. So let's launch into what we're going to talk about today. First, our history in proposals. In the last 40 years, things have changed a lot. So we're going to go through and do a little retrospective and kind of level set and say, how have things changed really since this advent of the new technological age? Second, the present, how our technological tools currently influence our work now, and then what our future looks like with AI, and how the tactics we can use to bring AI into our existing systems will be changing our work for the future. So let's take a look and just reflect on where we've come from as proposal and sales folks who have been engaging in government sales for a while, because this isn't the first time that we're seeing a major transformation in the proposal management space. This is slightly before my time, but only slightly, that we were cutting and pasting physical graphics to Xerox copy. And when we started doing newspapers and graphic design, we were actually having to do hard copy print activities. And I remember in my college, we even had the print shop in the basement of the old student union. Like, this was actually still a thing until not that long ago, right? We had binders full of printed proposals. I'm sure most of you probably still in your office have those archives of large initiatives that you had to print out, 14, 15 binders of all these different pieces of evidence, right? And desktop publishing actually occurred in hard copy. So we're not very far from those days. 2014, I still had bookshelves full of printed documents. So things have changed really quickly. I see Cynthia saying resounding yes. This was the way it was until very recently, and suddenly we've had a rapid transformation in a lot of what's been going on in proposals. I also like to reminisce about my old systems, because this was the first desktop publishing computer that I personally used, and it felt very high tech back in the early aughts, right? We're transitioning from graphic design that was based in hard copy into these newer tech tools. And in the early aughts, we were seeing desktop publications start to advance with systems like InDesign, Quark, Publisher, Pages, right? So we got this level up kind of at the beginning of the aughts that started this transition and sparked a lot of what we're doing today. Furthermore, we've seen the recent evolution of systems like SharePoint, shared drives, the Qvidian, the Rocket Docs, and the emergence of the first bid portals. And all of this started happening in around the early aughts, into the early teens. So pre-2000, we were doing hard copy preparation, a lot of that manual activities, a lot of the hard copy prep. We saw the cutting and pasting of physical objects. And then in the early aughts, we transitioned into that first iteration of tech tools. So we're sharing information more on shared drives. We're gaining additional efficiencies, and technology is making a really meaningful entrance. And as we transition into the early teens, we start seeing cloud-based technological tools like content repositories and printing options like Mimeo, right? All of these higher order opportunities are coming into our sphere of influence. But now, and we're trying to come up with a good term for the 20s in the proposal space. So we came up with the booming 20s because we're seeing the emergence of AI that is going to provide further shifts. So every decade has had kind of a landmark transition for proposal teams, and we are really excited to share with you how this next transition is going to happen. So where are we now? And we'll talk a little bit about where we're going to be going in the future. So where we are now is that cloud-based solutions to support RFP efficiency are really kind of at the top of the pile. But are they really enough to accomplish what we're trying to achieve? Most proposal tech falls into 4 domains today. One is for managing content. So let me go fetch a resume. Let me go fetch a project description, right? How do I manage my content and make sure that it's accurate and correct for the ongoing business operations? Second is project management. So we're trying to assign tasks, make sure that people are doing their work on time, communicating the requirements, and setting up documentation. Third is we focus really on reporting. So how fast are we doing our work? How expensive is it to create an RFP? And how much work are we actually winning? So that's maybe on the Salesforce or CRM side of things. And then fourth is the integrations, where we're looking at how proposals play nice in the sandbox with organizations like your product marketing teams or your revenue generation groups, right? So right now, proposal tech does all this stuff, and it does it okay, right? There's room for advancement, which we're probably going to see in the very near future. Today's proposal tools have a couple risks, though. First of all, particularly in the federal space, where we're talking to folks, that are on this call, security is a really top level concern, right? Cloud-based systems are inherently a little bit more challenging for those of us who work in secure domains. And a lot of these organizations are based overseas, so it makes it really difficult for us to do business with them if we're in a security conscious organization. So some countries where these organizations might be based are Ireland, Canada, Israel, right? So are we able to actually engage with these folks and use their software? Sometimes, not always, right? So it's just something to be mindful of. And also a lot of these organizations don't have FedRAMP certification, so they really can't operate in all of the spheres that we want them to. And then second, and Unica, I'm going to pitch a question over to you here in just a second. Today's proposal tools are really difficult when it comes to adoption. Users are not necessarily quick to jump on board. There are interfaces that folks have to use that sometimes don't necessarily line up with their intuition, and it makes it difficult for them to bring those things on board. The tools are not always reliable. I've had RFP tools crash in the middle of trying to submit, and talk about hair pulling and just a serious fright, right? When your system goes down in the middle of an RFP, that can be really challenging. And then also user training can be a challenge. Now, Unica, I know that you've implemented some of these at your various companies, and I'm curious what you think about organizational change management. Like, just give us a little snapshot about how you've been successful in that.
I think one of the biggest things is preparing people for change so that it's not an overnight thing. Let them know it's coming, give them a timeline, offer digestible training. I think that's something that's important. Sometimes people go, okay, we're going to do this 2-hour or 4-hour or 3-day, event. Sometimes that's too much for people to take in. So give it, in a fashion that's accessible for everybody as well. So whether it's, it's a video or maybe it's a 2-page step-by-step screenshot sort of situation, you want to make sure that you're mindful in that regard as far as how to give people the tools, but you also want to make sure that you are really cognizant of the state of your organization. Where are people? Are they exhausted and fatigued? Like, we've just experienced some of the most stressful years of our lives. Are people resistant to change, or as you said, user hesitance, not because they are disinterested in change or making their lives easier. I think that's where leadership is to come in and say, hey, yes, this will make our, company run more smoothly, but what is the benefit to you? Is the benefit now I can finish this work in 3 or 4 hours, and so I can get more done, and I can leave on time to go take my kid to soccer practice? Like, those are the things you've got to connect the dots with people. Where's the benefit? What's in it for your people? Like, I think that's the biggest piece when it comes to getting adoption.
Yeah, organizational change management, when it comes to using software tools, we have such a wide spectrum of experiences, right? Some folks are digital natives and have been using tools like this for decades, right? And some are not. And some have even more advanced skills than probably the folks that are sitting on this call today, with Generation Alpha bringing in these new skills, right? As they start entering the workforce in not too much longer. I also want to give a nod to all the people who are talking about the paper cuts that they used to get from hard copy submissions, and how folks are actually no-going paper submissions, which I think is a delightful choice. Definitely. Sorry, my cat is causing problems over off screen. So we're talking a little bit about change management. We're talking about how it used to be, and we're just looking forward now to how we are going to be transitioning into this new area of AI. So no surprise, the 2 risks that we talked about here of security and adoption, these transfer over into the AI tech as we start moving into this new sphere, right? When AI is trained, and Javier really hammers this home in your content, when AI is trained on confidential info, AI models become confidential assets. So I know that you added that to the slide, Javier, as we were having the conversations. Can you dive into that a little bit more and tell us what that means?
Yeah, sure. Mainly today, in order to work with AI in proposals, you have like 2 main options. The first option is to use a generic model or generic AI models that have been focused and trained on proposals and RFPs and bidding, but not on confidential information of the end user. That would be the easiest option, and then that model is not confidential because it hasn't been trained on anything confidential. Now, the more powerful option you have is the second option will be having one of those models and then feed all your confidential info, like whatever you want, the bidding people to know, like past proposals, sales report, financials, your team, etc. And once you do that, the thing is that same model becomes a confidential asset, because anyone that can access that model and prompt it, it could get all the information that models know. So it's like, so it's an extra risk. Like, AI models and AI tools have all the software risks, plus this one, if you go with the enterprise thing, like, let's train our own model, and that becomes our AI brain for our sales and bidding departments.
It's really important, and I think Javier does a very good job of describing this. We'll dive into this a little bit more later, about how ChatGPT and these kind of brand names of AI models are not the only ones that exist out there in the world, right? And so there's this large language model really has a lot more there's a larger discussion around it than just the tools that are available today. So thank you very much for weighing in there, Javier. We are not going to dive into that security or change management today. That's not the point of what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower you on how to actually use the AI tools today. And so if you'd like to have conversations with anybody in this group around those topics, we're happy to have those offline. And in fact, we're having those in the proposal industry experts community today. So happy to facilitate those as you feel inclined. So, okay, so we talked about where we went. Everybody talked about their paper cuts. They talked about the heavy binders and the shipping and the ridiculousness that we all had to deal with 20 years ago. But now where are we going? Because despite some of our hesitation and despite some of maybe some of our concerns or our trepidation, AI is here and it's been here for a while. So now it's just kind of surfacing into the public consciousness, and we're going to teach you how to use it today. Okay, great. What's the benefit of using AI? Across the team here, we have seen about a 30% plus time savings and higher quality documents. I can tell you that I use AI every single day to work on my proposals, and the quality of the work that I'm able to produce is dramatically higher because I've personally used or learned how to leverage these tools so that I can get a higher quality and faster work product. So we're going to teach you some of those techniques today with Michelle's demo. When we're thinking about ChatGPT and large language models, it's important for us to realize that these models operate on relationships between commonly connected concepts. So it's a relational model that's like a web between words and concepts that helps tie that information together. So here's some guidance about how you use AI tools, what they are good for and what they are not. What learned language models are really good for is reading, parsing, writing, and coming up with ideas. Okay, one of the great skills that I use AI for in my own practice is I will establish a persona and I will ask the AI to act as the way they are a certain type of decision maker, like a school board superintendent or like a federal contracting officer. And I will say, how would you want to hear about this software? Or how would you want to hear about this thing that I'm selling to you, right? So getting different perspectives is a really great way to leverage the AI by asking it to pretend to be somebody else and diving into those perspectives and understanding a little bit more. Because again, those nodes and relational concepts of information, that's how the AI really functions at its top level. The second is modifying content. So everybody on this call, I am sure you have heard we need to standardize the tone of our RFPs, right? We need to bring all of that information together. We need to make it sound coherent and cohesive. You can modify the content, make sure that the concepts flow logically, look for holes in your arguments, look for different ways that you should be presenting the information. These are great ways to use AI. So what I want you to think of as you're going into starting to use AI, does this information or content have relationships that I can explore? Can I think about where this might be coming from? Can I think about items that I might be missing? Can I determine whether or not I actually answered the question or I'm helping the customer understand what's happening in this process? What we don't rely on large language models for. We don't rely on it for factual information because it really depends. ChatGPT, I don't know if anybody here has been playing around with ChatGPT. Sometimes it can't even do a simple math problem, which is a little bit disturbing. Depends on how you phrase it, right? But the factual information is only as good as the information that's been fed into the model. So you can't expect the ChatGPTs of the world, you can't expect these AIs to know everything. And so use your data, use your reporting, use your actual hard sources and primary sources for that, and rely on ChatGPT and these other language models to observe relationships between data, not to deliver the data itself. Okay, second, we are not at the point today where we're all going to hand all of our work over to AI and say, okay, propose for me, right? Who knows, maybe 20 years in the future, that will be the case. But today we're using it as though it was a nail gun in place of a hammer. Right? People are still required to wield the tool and to wield the tool responsibly and to validate the quality. However, AI has a lot of opportunities to contribute to our work. And Catherine Neary in the comments says, even sometimes the ChatGPT's error is enlightening. Not wrong. Yeah, you can learn a lot from the ways that these computers kind of process well and don't. Okay, we're gonna run through this really quick. 3 types of domains that we're seeing AI making inroads into. First is the solicitation. So AI is going to affect the way that the government agencies actually seek providers and write their RFPs. If you take a look at Bonfire, go to the Bonfire website, grab this document that's called The Rise of Procurement's Next Normal. Now, we're not sponsored by Bonfire. We just really love this report. it talks about procurement teams and how they're going to automate writing solicitations and why it's important that they're going to save time. So we're not going to dive into all the aspects of this report. I just encourage you to go grab it because AI is on its way as a writing tool on the front end of your proposals. Second, responding. AI is going to help us write faster, do better work, leverage more resources within our organizations. The demonstration is forthcoming. We're going to figure out how in this space we can improve the tone and consistency of our proposals. We're going to figure out how we can conduct market research. You can improve your customer-facing language. You can slash your SMEs workloads. It's just a spectacular tool for actually writing the RFPs. We're going to dive into that a little bit more. Evaluation. Will government agencies use AI to inform their decisions? Now, here's a really spicy one, because just like resumes are submitted through an applicant tracking system, we in this group hypothesize, and we've already seen evidence that this is happening, that government organizations are going to start using AI to evaluate proposals. This is coming to light, particularly in the legal space right now, with an organization called Pursuit that is advertising AI analysis that's coming up through their kind of reverse auction system. So if you're curious of finding what that might look like, go grab a demo of Pursuit. Again, from this bonfire perspective, AI in procurement is not about replacing jobs, but augmenting them to make government employees' lives easier by taking on administrative tasks, freeing up time for procurement professionals, and identifying opportunities for doing strategic work. So just like we want to write faster RFPs, they want to evaluate RFPs faster. Okay, so just be mindful that we may be writing to the assessment of computers in the very near future. Evaluators may use AI to determine whether your proposal is compliant. Do you have your signatures? Do you have your shalls and wills and haves and maybes, right? Automating menial tasks like invoicing and lower stakes proposals. So maybe your task orders just go through an AI decision maker in the future. Entirely possible, and probably, within the next 5 years. Finally, evaluators may use it to identify the opportunities that create the biggest bottom line impact. So again, using that relational capacity of these tools to determine whether or not they're prioritizing the right purchases. So we may see a different buying pattern that may emerge because of AI. Okay, blistering pace. We got through that in 25 minutes. This is exactly what I was hoping for, because now what Michelle is going to do is demonstrate some tasks and opportunities for using AI in our everyday practice. And then we're going to return back for a couple slides at the end. Michelle, are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
All right. I am going to go to a nice blank ChatGPT screen right here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to assume that we're all going to be using something free and available to everyone, and ChatGPT is the popular way to do it. So you'll see that I've got these two options on here, GPT-4, if you've heard about it, that I believe you have to pay to use that one. And it's more powerful, but I'm not going to demo on that one right now because it's not free to everyone. So I'm going to show a couple prompts that I have used, are realistic, and you could use them right now. So I'm not going to type in here because they're just going to take me too long. But just as Catherine was saying, you want to give it a personality. You want to tell it who it is, because it's going to respond better. The more context you have of the reasoning behind what it's going to be doing. So for this use case, really what I want it to do is rewrite bullets or paragraphs to change the structure. But I need to tell it the context of this project that I'm working on. I have a bunch of bullets that are actually going on a capability statement. So with the capability statement, the bullets I have are just, they all start with the company name. Company name provides, company name provides, company name provides. And to me, that isn't what I want to do. I don't want to spend 15, 20, 30 minutes going, how do I change the format of these sentences to make them more interesting? So instead, I've given it this initial prompt, and it's saying, here's what we're doing. We're listing several projects. It's for a marketing brochure. They have a description, and I want the descriptions rephrased so they begin with a different sentence structure. I'm telling it how many, and then I'm telling them what's coming. Hey, I'm ready. So now I'm going to give them in the next prompt the descriptions. So you can see here, you're going to see that this content means nothing to you guys because I've used some kind of real content and then I've changed it to meaningless acronyms. And part of this is because I encourage everyone, if you're using ChatGPT, as we talked about, to read the terms and conditions before you start putting information in here. And it's going to start changing the way that this looks. So same information, but it's now saying, instead of Acme provides, Acme provides, Acme provided, Acme provides, it's saying Acme's expertise in stack, blah, blah, blah. It's changing them. So this saved me that time from reformatting everything. Didn't write anything new, didn't do anything like that. So there's one example. Now I'm going to, we'll grab a new one and let's do this one. Now we're going to combine and summarize a couple things. So the first thing we're going to do is, actually this one I've got it all in one big long prompt. So I'm going to paste it in here and then I'm going to tell you what it is. I want to take two bios, my bios, and I want to make a better bio that is more specific to something. So for example, you're speaking on a presentation about AI and you have a bio about proposals and you have a bio that you did about tech stuff and you need to have a bio that's specific to proposals and tech stuff. Or you have a project manager who's done a bunch of dams and you have a project manager who's done a bunch of levies and you want to talk about how they do dams and levies for a different proposal. We're going to combine those. So for this prompt, you've got your basic intro. Act as an expert in government proposals. You're participating on a panel to discuss how AI will impact the proposal industry. I actually did this, by the way. This is where this came from. So your background involves two separate types of experience that are relevant to this topic. The goal is a new bio. So we're not just saying, take these two paragraphs and combine them. Because if I did that, I was going to get something that I didn't like. I learned this through trial and error because I realized that I didn't like it. I told it that I wanted 160 words or less. And it did not listen to me, by the way. So then I gave it the two paragraphs. So there was one and there was two. And because I copy pasted this, it did not listen. You can always do a shift return and shift return if you want to add spaces into this box. So then I'm going to hit enter and it gives me, so there, now you can see the full prompt. A good prompt is pretty long. And it gave me this long thing. Well, that's a whole lot longer than 160 words. So you can always follow up. And I'm going to do that.
Michelle, really quick, when you're coming to prompting, is it better to use like a bulleted list or should you tell it in paragraph form? Like for something like this, which have you had more success with?
It kind of depends. So you can give it like steps. So you can say step one, do this, step two, do that, step two, do that. Or you can give it a whole context paragraph, or you can have multi-step prompts. I've done multi-step prompts that work really, really well. And I'm starting with some of the simpler ones because I don't want to jump into something really complex, but I'm going to get to that also. I wanted to point out also that on, this is ChatGPT. If you look in some of the documentation on OpenAI, they have recommendations for prompting, and they do mention to give it specific instructions about who it is, the context, the desired output. If you think about coding, you're kind of coding what you want in it. If you think about RFPs, an RFP is telling you what the desired result is. And so if you say, tell me about a project you did, anyone who writes an who writes a proposal says, but you didn't give me a form, but do you want the start and the end date, or do you just want the end date? You just want the year? You want to know the structure of what details the project should be provided in. What am I supposed to show on the resume? Do you want a list of projects, or do you want me just to describe all of these things? We want to know the constraints, and ChatGPT is the same way as a proposal writer, basically. So you need to tell it all of that information. if that makes sense. So I asked it to go down to 200 words or less. It's still really long. So you can continue to fine tune this as you go.
Michelle, what else might you ask? What else might you ask this model? Like if like change the tone, or what other manipulations could you do?
Yeah, so there is another way to, I had a separate prompt, but it's kind of similar. So how about you could start with this, or you could start with asking it for, I'm going to paste this in here first because it is basically the same type of thing. So in this one, it's a proposal writer. You need to format a resume paragraph into bullets. So we're now taking, we could have started with the last one and said format this into bullets, but I'm going to take this one an extra step afterwards. And so we're starting with this. So now I'm going to tell it what the RFP is. And then I told it where the content is. So it's within the quotes. So then this I've done in proposals before when I could not get a person on the phone. You know, they swapped out a resume at the last minute, and I did this from a LinkedIn bio. So if needed, you could take a LinkedIn bio, put it in here, and put it into resume bullets. And so then we're going to do this, and it's going to put it into bullets. And I told it that this was just for contract writing, but I didn't give it anything else related to what that scope of work was. So I could follow this up and say, actually, the scope of work is something more specific, and follow that up, if that makes sense. Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah. I'm really interested. We also had a really good question in the chat that I think we have this opportunity to talk about here. I think, Michelle, you'll be tickled by this. They're asking, how do you remove the fluff? You know how we always have folks saying this sounds too salesy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I have an approach that I would use to that. And what I've done in the past is I've actually asked the model to say, hey, remove language that sounds too salesy. And then I will actually ask it, what did you change, and how, you know, and then kind of learn from the system about how that works. I have a couple other strategies for removing some of that kind of fluffy sales language. Do you have an approach that you might use for something like this?
Yeah, you can specifically say, do not include a summary statement at the end, because it always says in conclusion. But typically you'll get the in conclusions when you're not specifying how to write. And a lot of times if I get the in conclusion, I just won't include it if I haven't told it that. The last prompt that I have is very specific on how to write, and it's analyzing a sample of your own text and then spitting it back out at you. And I can skip to that one first if we're short on time. I have one about how to turn a table of projects into a narrative, defining your experience.
We are not short on time.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do it all.
Because this one is fun. So what we're going to start with, this is, so a lot of times you'll have, let's say you're exporting content from Procore or wherever you keep your project data, and you want to summarize your experience in maybe it's an executive summary or in some part of the proposal where you're highlighting what it is that you do. So you're a proposal writer, you're a construction firm. This is what we're responding to. Now, I've taken prompts that I've actually used and I've made them very, very vague. So you would be more specific on this of, you know, where it is, how long it is, the types of things that you're doing. Write a narrative outlining your firm's experience with projects of this type in the last several years. Use the following data in your response. So then I have a table. And this came from a spreadsheet, and I included the header rows. So you'll see the header rows at the top, agency type, dollar description, end date, award date. And what it's going to do is tell us our construction firm has a proven track record in all of this. And then that's what we don't like. Overall, this is bleh. We're going to come back to this writing style in a minute, because we're going to define a writing style, and then we're going to take this and put it into that after we define it. And then you'll see how that changes. We can also take this and say, maybe we want to focus on emergency departments. Okay.
So really what this comes down to, Michelle, is that you were able to take a table and put it into a more descriptive format that would be more attractive for like a past performance section.
Yeah, and you can even take it. Now, the table has, this is really powerful because the table has all of the start and end dates of these projects. So I have really worked with this to ask it, tell me about the projects I performed during 2020.
Ah, okay.
Because I wanted to know, what was the amount of work that we were able to start while COVID was happening in medical facilities, and then be able to write narratives during that. And that would have required somebody to sit down and start coloring on this spreadsheet to go this one, that one, that one, that one. And I wanted to know basically the number of projects that were happening concurrently during these dates. And it really wasn't easy to get it to spit that out at first, because it needed to have the matches from the start and the end dates. And so it took some configuring with how the data was set up, but then you can turn that into graphics and things like that.
So okay, so you would export that maybe from your CRM or your customer relationship management system, or like your list of projects. So you could take like a very large list of projects, ostensibly, have it digest themes of certain projects over 5K or okay. So you can have it and then have it deliver a narrative description. Okay.
Yeah. So you might have to say, if a project started after this day in 2020, then consider it active during COVID. You'd have to tell it that first, because then I want to know all the projects active during COVID. So you'd have to tell it that piece, because it might not automatically assume the start to the end is the active time frame. So I'm going to grab, one more. This is a variation on one of my favorite writing style prompts. And I've tried to shorten the prompt. This started as a multi-phase prompt. So I'm basically telling it that it's a linguistics expert. And I'm giving it 25 techniques to analyze a sample of writing. I'm telling it where the sample of writing is, and I'm asking it to create a comprehensive, systematic, objective writing style profile and to name it. So the first time I used this, I told it to give me 25 techniques. And then now I'm giving it back to it. So instead of doing the multi-prompt, I've already got the 25 techniques. I'm just going to use them again. So I'm pasting the techniques here. This is what they are. You could then, so technically, if you were asking it this prompt for the first time, you could say, give me 25 techniques, and it'll spit this back out at you. So here they are.
So these are like 25 good writing techniques. Is that what we're?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Be a good writer. Okay.
So it's analyzing my text for the use of literary and rhetorical devices, syntax, semantics, and all of this. So it's going through my sample text and it's looking for this. I told it I was putting my text in triple quotes so it knows what it is. And so then I'm going to put this in here. And this is my text. And now it's analyzing my text based on these 25 approaches.
I'm surprised it can chew through 25 of these. I would not have expected such capacity, right? That's amazing.
Yeah. So this is writing style B. So now we're going to go back to this one. And we're going to grab this. Actually, I can just copy it right here. And we're going to go back to here.
Michelle, when you're done with this, can you ask it what it changed?
Oh, yes, I can.
I'm sorry. I'm just really curious.
Yeah.
So this has benefits as in that you could onboard people by like helping them understand the writing style of your organization as well, right? Like that's kind of where I was thinking about like teaching them what those replacements look like and how. Anyway, there's a qualitative aspect to this as well. Yeah.
Yes. And see, I'm noticing things that I don't like. So now I need to figure out how I can tell it to not use words like moreover, because I don't want to start a paragraph with moreover. And so I would need to add to writing style B and tell it not to start paragraphs with moreover. So a prompting is not simple to get the output that you want perfectly. And I have not put in that much effort. I usually will use it enough to like change things around, and then I'm just kind of neurotic about writing, so I would rather write it myself. So asking it to use specific style manuals in the versions of like the API of GPT, you can upload things and reference them, but you can't in the free versions. So there are ways to do that, but not on ChatGPT.
And just to be clear, the API is like a way to connect softwares, like a bridge between softwares. Like if folks aren't familiar with that terminology.
Yes.
Michelle, love this demonstration, and we're getting tight on time. So what I'd love to do here is showcase our last couple slides here, and then really open it up for questions. We are comfortable staying a little bit late because I know that folks are really going to have a lot of questions. So before we head into that really intentional Q&A bit here, what I do want to share with you, actually we're just going to switch. We're going to skip past that really quick. You probably want to know how to train your teams in ChatGPT and large language models and all of these new emerging technologies. Good news for you is that Pi and Promptly are teaming up to deliver the first prompt engineering certification for proposal teams. It's coming actually next month, so super quick. Unica and I are working on this together, which is a really delightful opportunity for all of us. We have real scientists, real engineers, and Javier is one of those that is also in this domain who's offering a lot of thought leadership as well. So between this prompt engineering certification and some of Javier's content that you're going to be able to see online, and we'll hand that over to him to pitch in just a moment, you're going to be able to have training opportunities in the future. We will be sending out a code in the email after our opportunity or after our conversation here, where you can register to attend these courses. It's a modest fee. If you would like to use your QR code to scan that now to get on the list for the release of this prompt engineering class, we invite you to do that as well. And I'll just leave this up as we're having our conversation. And then you can also, we'll have follow-on emails about this as well. I did see a question, Whitney, if you don't mind, what I'd love to do is pitch a question that I saw from Jacob over to Javier first, because that would be a good one to kick off with. If that's okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's
Okay.
additional questions, feel free to put it in the chat. We do definitely have questions, so feel free to add it in the chat and we can get to it.
Okay, great. So Jacob asks, are there common pitfalls or oh, I just lost it. Are there common pitfalls associated? There it is. Are there common pitfalls or mistakes that people make when they're first starting to utilize AI to produce documents? And Javier, I think your opinion on this is going to be absolutely vital.
Yeah, there is a common pitfall that we get like from, starting users, and I get that question every sales course we are in, is that, it's very important to understand that there's one thing that is the context that an AI model can take as an input, okay? And that can be, right now, it's quite long, like we're talking about 20 pages. The more powerful models are taking up to 40, 50 pages. That's like the context you give the model to consider at once. So for example, imagine you are asking for a executive summary of something. You could upload like 40 pages of that and then ask for that summary. That's one difference. And then the other thing to understand is that the output length is not related to that. So right now the models are capped or not generating very good long content. Like if you want to go for 10 pages at once, 20 pages at once, the performance is going to crash. Most of the models cannot handle that, and it's not a very good approach. So the common pitfall is that idea, like, people are trying to go to these models and say, okay, here's my RFP, give me a draft. And it's working much better, the approach to go like one requirement at a time, or a few requirements at a time. Like, okay, I have these requirements, I give you the context or give the model the context, and let's generate a 1 or 2 pages response to this particular section. And then you review that, make it final, and keep that flow going. That works much better right now with the technology, the status of the technology, to complete full documents. But you need to go like with this idea of one step at a time.
Yeah, that's super insightful. I think we at this stage, we think that AI has the potential to do a lot more than maybe it actually does. And so like testing what those parameters look like is really important. Unica and Michelle, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what are your common pitfalls that you're running into there as well?
I would just say that I like to test it with things that I know about, because you can easily see what it does not know. So in my history of, ChatGPT, I ask it a lot about proposal writing and proposal consulting and proposal management, and it will tell me all sorts of things about how it's done and the processes and all of that. And I think about that in terms of if I were to be responding to an RFP and asking it, how do I build, a levy, or how do I build, a new hospital? It's going to tell me all of these things and it's going to tell it wrong. So it's good for doing research in a way where you might be able to understand how to use words in a sentence when you're talking to a subject matter expert. It can help you provide bullet points or summarize things or change things around like this. But in terms of actually writing an approach, your secret sauce is absolutely your secret sauce, and you can't replace that. And I've looked at tools that exist, kind of like what Javier was saying. Any proposal writing AI tool is literally taking shalls to wills, and it has nothing about how your company does the work in it. So that's kind of where we are on this, but I am very interested to see how the government will use it, because everybody on this call understands that this is something that's impacting our industry and we just need to be aware. But it's, it's here, but it's also early.
Unica, what do you think?
Definitely very sorry, there's a bug. It's definitely very early. I think for me, one of the things I think about is obviously effective prompting, which Michelle has done a fantastic job of demonstrating for us how important it is to be specific. If you don't say I want 5 outputs, you only get 1. Well, those little things matter when you're putting information into ChatGPT. I think the other pitfall is not so much about the use of tech that I was always leery of. At the end, an announcement phase of, hey, we got these new tools, we should try and use them. My initial conversation was around ethics, and I put together a panel for proposal industry experts around this. Are we making decisions with data that's got, biases that are rooted in our own cultural inheritance? Like, let's be mindful of what data we're using and why. Let's ask questions. And so I like to remind people like that, ethics is a human job. Like, that's something that we need to be mindful of and to monitor. We are the people who have the final say in a lot of the content that goes in, how we use it.
Very important. And actually on proposalindustryexperts.com, if you join our community, you can access the AI ethics panel that Unica led, which had some extremely qualified experts on that. You can learn from an attorney and from some ethicists and from some tech experts. So if that's a topic that you want to dive into more, that's available on proposalindustryexperts.com, and we can make that available. Okay, Whitney, do you want me to hand it over to you to manage the rest of the questions that we're seeing emerge?
Sure. I think we have time for maybe one more, and then if we can definitely stay after, but let's answer one more. Then we got to close out before 1 o'clock. But if it can be a quick question from Joe Yates, he says, "Can you link ChatGPT to a database somehow so you can query items outside of the database?"
Javier, that's probably a good opportunity for us to talk about like bespoke models, right?
Yeah, and also I wanted to touch on, because there is a hot topic there in the chat, which is like, giving up your intellectual property when using these tools. And it's very important not to confuse terms here. One thing is the models, the AI models, like the underlying model that is powering some of the applications. And then the other thing are the applications. Okay, so ChatGPT is not really a model, is an application that is calling different models. So as you saw, the free version is calling GPT 3.5, one version of that, and then you have GPT-4 and others. So here I wanted to clarify that it's true that ChatGPT, being an end consumer application, and this happens with ChatGPT, but also Microsoft Bing, Google Bard, and whatever you can find in the end consumer application, the terms and conditions and the privacy there is not very good for business applications. So in most cases, you will be giving your intellectual property, like they're going to train those AI models in all the users' inputs. So those applications are not good, a good fit for business applications that are dealing with confidential information, which are most of the cases. But that doesn't mean that the models underlying those applications and the technology overall cannot be implemented in B2B solutions, software solutions that cover everything you need as a business about privacy and confidentiality and what happens with your data, etc. So that's one clarification. Like, if you want to implement this as a company, it's, go for B2B solutions that are implementing sort of similar applications, but taking into account everything that a business needs. And then regarding that database thing, I believe that with the plugins in ChatGPT, you can do sort of that, like linking a database. I'm not sure how that is like working right now, because most of the plugins I've tried are like, very buggy and not performing very well. But the technology, like if you go with a B2B solution or you go with custom development on top of these models, for sure you can index any database. You can convert documents into databases, so the model is aware of your context, your content, your way of writing, etc. So that's totally feasible. But ChatGPT and other end users applications probably going to cover your business case.
Great, thank you. We need to close out right before 1 o'clock, but we're all happy to stay on a few minutes afterwards, because I know there are additional questions. So, but I would like to say thank you for everyone for participating in today's sessions. It's definitely there's been a very informative presentation. Definitely a lot of great takeaways on ChatGPT and on LLMs. Thank you for all the interest from our participants here today. If you'd like to save the chat, and along with the questions, also the people you've reached out to today, you should be able to go to File and go to Save, and you can save the chat. So you'll be able to see all the contacts, everyone's LinkedIn or contact information to be able to see everyone who is here today. But before we wrap up the program here today, I'd like to share with you some of the upcoming events that we have planned. So please mark your calendar for upcoming local post events as well as national events. So, of course, we are committed to bringing more content and fun events for the rest of the year. So our next First Friday will be on August 7th for resolving issues, avoiding conflict, and preserving claims on construction contracts, featuring Maria Pancinelli from Carter in English. And all participants will earn 1 PDH, and registration is open now. And if you are interested in sharing your knowledge on current educational topics on our First Friday with our members, we are accepting presentation applications starting in November of next year. So please go to our website to submit your topic today. As you can see, we've already planned our First Friday for the rest of 2023. So there is a save the date for our September First Friday on new applications, 3D laser scanning with Christopher Fillmore at IMEG. Registration for our First Fridays open up immediately after the previous month's session. And so we are busy planning our annual River Runner Family Day, kayak and picnic on the Potomac. Save the date, and we'll send out information on how you can support Team River Runner and enjoy a day with the family for this free event, which is sponsored by AFG and hosted by the DC and Mid-Maryland Post and DBIA Mid-Atlantic. So kids and dogs are welcome. And finally, we have opened up registration and sponsorship for our annual golf tournament on Wednesday, October 4th at the courses at Andrews. You don't want to miss this fun day. It's one of the most challenging courses on a military installation at Joint Base Andrews. This fundraiser supports our scholarship and STEM educational events. So show up and support today. So please visit our website and mark your calendar for upcoming events, both here locally and nationally. So again, thank you to Catherine and Proposal Industry Experts and the rest of the team. Please look out for document delivery and your PDH certificate today. And the recording will be on our website later on this month. So have a great weekend, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event. So we will stay on for a couple more minutes if there's anybody who has questions. So we're happy to answer this. So thank you all.
Yeah, this was a ton of fun. It's exciting to see, Michelle. What I really love about your presentation is thinking about how this works for the larger proposals. You and I operate in such different contexts. Like, we're such rapid fire, and Utica and I talk about this all the time, about how in SLED it's like rapid fire. We do a lot more in ChatGPT, and then figuring out how with those more intentional models, you're really spending the time to customize in a really meaningful way. Mm-hmm. And so that is, I mean, like, obviously you customize as much as you can on the front end for SLED, but you got to go. And so it's just a totally different work practice. Really fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And, I'm working on a prompt. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm working on one that is telling ChatGPT that it is a member of the Source Selection Evaluation Board, and it gives it the basis of award and the order of evaluation and the level of what is most important, and then giving it sections of the proposal, like defines, here's a strength, a weakness, and deficiency, and then says, tell me what my strengths, weaknesses, and deficiencies are.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I don't know, it just seems like it should be able to do it. I haven't tested it yet.
What I've been using it for, just a much simpler version of what you're saying, is for shorter ones. What I'm saying is, did I answer the question? I just ask it, did I answer the question? And it tells me, like, you could probably offer more evidence of this. And I'm like, oh, it's great. So even like just a little snappy. Yes. So in-house models that lower the risk. Yes. Javier, can you dive into that? Can you tell us a little bit more about like in-house models that are being created for bespoke, like AECOM or whoever it is, Jacobs or these big organizations can buy their own AIs essentially, right? Like, that's on its way, or it's here.
Yeah. Well, because that question, Gloria's question was about this confidentiality problem. So you have like two options there. One option that's going to work for most of the small to medium enterprises is to go with a B2B solution that has that solved, like, it's not using your data to train any AI, doesn't retain your data. And so there are implementations that you can use, that you can start leveraging AI and ensuring confidentiality. And that's already, there are some solutions there. And now for the more enterprise level, like if, not probably not affordable for most small, medium enterprises, but if you are a big company, there is the more powerful option is to go with, you will have different options, but basically it's having one of these generic models and then training that model in your, with your corporate knowledge, like giving everything you know about proposals or everything you want someone in proposal know. And then also you can do like two things. One is giving the model the information, and then you also can train the model on an extra layer of content, so it writes like your, it represents your culture, it writes as your company does, etc. So you can feed your best proposals, and then that model learns to write like that. The only thing with that is, like, of course, that model becomes confidential, and there are different implementations of how you can do that. Hosting in-house is, really complex, but even in the cloud, you can get a solution that ensures that serves only to you exclusively and confidentially. So that's a possibility. The only thing to take into account is that, the investment you are looking for. So you should be looking for to get that type of solution. It starts like right now, the price point is like around $100,000, dollars a year, something like that, for a company. And that's because, training models is expensive. And then if someone does that for you, you are the only client for that particular model, because that model is confidential itself. So the economy of scale really breaks in that area. Right now, it's like something that only big corporations are looking into.
Yeah, I think that's the way that this is probably going to end up. Is that folks are going to? I mean, Unica, you probably have to be mindful about what you share with some of this. But do you concur that that's probably the future for a lot of folks? Yeah. Okay.
I think we had one last question that was up a little earlier. I think we might have missed it. Maybe the last one. It was. Hang on. It was from. I think it's. How much can you trust the ChatGPT's disabled learning mode?
Oh yeah, Neha had a couple of really good questions about the disabled mode, and then also that NDA question.
Yes.
Yeah. Javier, can you speak to that? Or Unica, do you have a concept of how that security piece works?
That is beyond my.
If you read the terms and conditions, it might not be learning from it. Like, this is if you're, just from what I understand it, if you go into OpenAI's terms and conditions, you can tell it not to learn from your data, and it might not be going back into the model, but it does authorize a human to read all the stuff for quality at any time. So just keep that in mind. And if you are signing an NDA with a sub to work on your proposal, I wouldn't put it into AI ever.
So let me ask you this though, Michelle. So some of these RFP tools like RFPIO, like Loopio, like Ombud, right? Some of these tools are starting to gather their own, like they have their own in-house GPT instances or whatever, right? There's ostensibly secure. Would you
read their terms and conditions?
Would you take that risk, or you'd probably have your legal team take a look at all this?
I mean, that's why I'm putting my bio in here to demo it, because honestly, like in my regular course of business I'm a consultant. So when I'm working with clients, I fully disclose if I'm using any AI with every client that I do it with. And usually I will show them what I do so they understand, because they're paying me to write their proposal. And if I'm using AI, then to me, they need to understand what I'm doing. And usually it's just like, hey, I needed to understand how things were laid out in Puerto Rico. So I did some research, and then I added in some things over here that I understood, and I helped frame up some stuff. But you would want to tell them about any of those things. And usually it's more for research data gathering. But
yeah, well, I mean, we've all heard those stories about the Samsung code making its way out into the wild, right? Yeah.
That was with ChatGPT, and that's the problem with end consumer applications being used in businesses. Like this wasn't designed to cover your business policies for this. And also adding to that, like if you check, like there are, even if OpenAI is serving your models or serving the technology, there is a huge difference between the API, like connecting to the backend of OpenAI and agreeing with them on what happens with your data there, which is what most of the businesses that are implementing B2B solutions are doing, like those type B2B agreements with OpenAI on what's going to happen with the data. And the ChatGPT end user, like don't train with my data, which is totally different terms. And actually, that questions should be answered by your cybersecurity team or your legal team. Like, are they okay with that, with those terms and conditions? But that's probably not going to be the case because, again, you are trying to use something that was designed to mass market, to people, to like a chat and to show powerful capabilities of AI, but to the end user. And now you're trying to force that application into your business, environment. And there are companies already doing applications for that business environment. So it's much better, much clever to go for those.
Yeah, the security piece of this is especially like, well, Whitney, you sent me some articles about how even the federal government is starting to explore AI models. But
State
again,
Department, Air Force are publicly putting it out, but it's also pondering in other agencies as well. I'm sure there's going to be other agencies. They're going to definitely having their eyes very closely monitoring what those two are going to be doing. And then once there's some success, it's just going to be, and that snowball is just going to move quickly, and then all of a sudden everyone else is going to be catching up.
well, and I'm curious if there's going to be like bespoke, like just like we have bid portals and we have like sam.gov right now, right? Like we have these ways of connecting with those departments. I wonder if AI is going to start playing a role in some of the ways that we connect with the departments too, like, or we submit the bid or we submit questions around all of the stuff, right? So if you look at all the different dimensions of proposing, Gloria says the feds are using AI right now in procurement. Oh, yeah, yep. They Illyrium, I think, is one of the companies that's providing some of that, and they have been for a hot second. They just haven't been talking about it, right? Like, secret. Yeah. Gloria, I would love to, if that recording is available, or if you can send us the link or put that in Proposal Industry Experts, we'd love to be able to promote that, because I'm sure that you've got a lot of really good insight there too. Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation. There's so many different dimensions of this. But I do want to say also, based on some of these questions, is that how I found I have been most successful in working with these models is if I actually have a conversation with it, just like I would have a friend. Unica and I are sitting down and talking about, like, hey, do you think we could fix this by doing X, Y, or Z? And if I use it having that same approach and just talk to it like a human, I tend to get really solid results, as opposed to being like, hey, robot, please do 1, 2, 3. Like, sometimes that works. Or like Michelle's list of 25 things. If you can categorize it down to that specificity, absolutely. But the conversational model has worked really well for me. And so it's interesting to see our different approaches. None of which is like, all of which are valid, right? Unica, you've got the federal procurement innovation.
That's another great tool for keeping up with some of the innovation that's coming out of federal agencies. DHS has their proposal innovation lab. They host boot camps and things as well. So they're going to talk about things that are AI related, but also see the other tools. So there's a lot happening in this space.
Yeah. So long story short, this is the team you want to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if there's any last questions. I think we've really covered a lot. But all right, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Have a great Friday, and we'll talk to everyone later.